This is Seahawks Today. I am your host, Will Ortner, and I cannot believe that on February 27th, I'm talking to you about an injury update on a Seattle Seahawks player, but I am. And we're going to dive into the stuff that's going on with Tory Horton because I'll tell you right now, I'm officially worried, and I don't think that I should be worried about any injury issues around a Seahawks player in February, but I don't like the language that the coaches are using around him, and I don't like that we don't really have a ton of information on this injury. The other thing that we're going to talk about at the end is, well, Mr. Ortner, my job before I was here was I was a substitute teacher. Believe it or not, Will Ortner was a substitute teacher, and so I had to do grade checks every now and again. And, well, we're going to check the grades of the Seattle Seahawks according to the players in the building and on opposing teams, and we'll see where they grade out according to the NFL players. Before we do any of that, though, if you're a real one, you want to grab your Seahawks Today shirt. It's super cool, very affordable, only $24.99. We've got the navy as well as the black. Look at how cool this thing looks. You can support your favorite show here on Chat Sports just by grabbing yourself one today. And remember, March right around the corner. That means St. Patrick's Day. We're still selling the Seattle Drinking Team shirts, but I'll tell you right now, time to get those is rapidly approaching. You can get the green or the blue. Only $29.99. Super fresh, super fly. You're going to look great in that t-shirt if you go grab yourself one. And I do have to give a special shout out to my guy, Art. Shout out to you joining the Drinking Team. That's so freaking awesome. If you want to get a shout out just like Art, you go grab one of these shirts yourself, and I'll make sure that you're in a future video on the channel. Thank you guys for supporting us, and I'll always support those who support us. By the way, link's going to be in the comment section and description of today's video. Obviously, the rookies in Seattle made a major impact. Tory Horton, one of them, but Gray Zabel, Nicky Manwari, Elijah Arroyo to a lesser degree, but he did. Riley Mills, Robbie Oots. The rookie class for the Seahawks was very fantastic, and I think it's important that Mike Macdonald at the 2026 NFL Combine really went in and highlighted that fact. Here's what he had to say.
Well, it's incredibly important for multiple reasons. One, I mean, just look at the productivity we had of those top two guys, solidifying our offensive line with Gray, and really the leadership position that he's taken within our team was really integral towards our success on offense. And you know, everyone talks about Nick, but that's kind of self-evident and how that came to life. But the whole rookie class as a whole, I think the way they handled their business in terms of being ready to go, understanding their stuff, putting in the extra time, showing that the vets, that they are invested in our team and it matters to them and they have respect for the guys that kind of laid the groundwork for them before them, let that connection happen quicker. And to the vets' credit, they're creating an environment where they let the guys kind of come in and be themselves and welcome them and show them the ropes. And if you don't have that, it's hard to build the team that we built. So that's something we're going to have to do moving forward. And obviously we had a lot more picks last year going into the draft than we do this year. That will probably change, but those guys are going to be, foundational pieces for our team moving forward.
I love that Macdonald really pointed out the impact that these rookies had on this Super Bowl winning team, because without the rookies, the Seahawks don't win the Super Bowl. And I don't think that we emphasize that enough on players that aren't named necessarily Gray Zabel or Nicky Manwari, because as great as they are, and trust me, those guys are great, I think that a guy like Riley Mills really added into what this team can be, because I think we've seen just the very beginning of his potential. Another player that I feel that way is Tory Horton. Now, unfortunately for Tory Horton, he was making a bunch of big plays. He was starting to make some big strides. The Seahawks had just traded for Rashid Shaheed and he was only going to kind of build up and emphasize some of the strengths that Tory Horton has. And then he had his shin injury, and that was kind of all she wrote on his season. Now, when you look at his entire year in 2025, when I talk about Horton, I would tell you right now that it was a very much boom or bust kind of output for him. What I mean by that is, well, Horton only had 13 catches, yet he had 5 touchdowns. That's not including the punt return touchdown that he had as well. So if you think about it, in 8 games played, Tory Horton had 6 touchdowns, which that's unbelievable, especially for a rookie. But we really didn't get to see the full totality of what he could be or what he can be as a wide receiver in this league because he ended up suffering that shin injury. And now remember, that shin injury happened during practice. So it's not like it was something that we got to see, and then it was always, hey, well, maybe he'll be back, maybe, and then he just never ended up being back. Now, I was able to kind of see him move around and walk around when we were doing some of our Super Bowl coverage. Now, obviously, that's just him walking around throughout the convention center and during media availability. He was a very nice guy. I very much enjoyed my conversation with Tory Horton. So I'm rooting for Tory Horton, and I want him to be healthy and to get back out on the field simply because, one, I love the Seahawks, but two, I really like Tory Horton, the person. And so I was very disappointed to see Brady Henderson of ESPN tweet this out, where Macdonald came in and he said, yeah, Tory Horton, he got fixed up. We're just working through it, but he's not going to do anything in the spring. So Tory Horton's shin injury is so worrisome and it's so difficult for him to work through and to come back from that he's now not going to be able to do anything throughout the rest of the spring. So that means that he's still going through a rehab assignment and rehabbing his body to try and get himself in a position to even get to July in training camp. Now, while at the end of the day, what's most important is always going to be Tory Horton being able to play during the regular season, it does feel like he's missing out on some of his opportunities to get better as a player simply because he's not able to go out and practice. I had an old ball coach that used to tell me the best ability is availability. Because if you're always able to do something, you're always able to play, you're always able to practice, you're going to get better simply by osmosis of being out there. You couple that in with the fact that Tory Horton has had injury issues in college, well, shoot, I'm worried. I'm worried about him being healthy and the injury status that he's going to have throughout his career as a Seattle Seahawk. Are you worried about Tory Horton's injury status? Yes or no? Let me know down below in the comment section because I'll tell you right now, these were concerns when he was drafted. Everyone said Tory Horton, very good player, very dynamic, can get into the end zone a lot. We've seen that. The issue was always, would he stay healthy? The potential timeline right now for Horton, as I can best figure it out, is if he's not doing anything until spring, that means we're not going to see Horton back until probably mandatory minicamp, which that ends up getting going right around the beginning to end of June. Now, there is a chance that he might not even be ready for that, depending on when it hits or if there's a setback or anything else. And hopefully I'm just being hyperbolic. Hopefully I'm just being a worrywart. Hopefully I am just a little bit overly concerned. But I'll tell you right now, this is something that we definitely need to keep an eye on, not just here on Seahawks Today, but as Seahawks fans in general. Because this is a very good wide receiver. This is a very dynamic wide receiver. This is a great person. This is a guy that I am rooting for. But if he's unable to be on the field, Seattle is going to have to look at either potential backup options for him or replacement options, which is why it's always good to use your time at the NFL Combine to make sure that you're meeting with players. Even if it's players that you might not necessarily draft this year, or if it's a player that you don't think necessarily fits in with the team right now, but could potentially fit in with the team later on. What I'm talking about are two interesting interviews and meetings that I saw from the Seahawks because the Seahawks met with two wide receivers, Makai Lemon and Jordyn Tyson, two of the top wide receivers in this draft class, and two receivers that I don't see being available at pick 32. Now, what would be very interesting for the Seahawks would be if they go and attack the defensive holes that could potentially pop up for this team in free agency, and they're able to re-sign a guy like Kobe Bryant, or go out and find a way to either re-sign Reek Woolen or Josh Jobe, or go sign a new cornerback to come in and replace them. Maybe the Seahawks look at that wide receiver position and say, hey, we feel pretty darn good about the guys we have in on our defense. Maybe we can go up and grab one of these wide receivers. Or if they believe the receiver might drop in the draft, well, hey, maybe this is someone that they can go and pick up later on. I find it interesting that immediately people look at USC and they go, hey, Makai Lemon, you must know something and must be aware of everything that's going on with Sam Darnold. So Lemon was asked about Sam Darnold, and he had a lot of really good things to say about our quarterback here in Seattle.
No, I ain't talked to him too many times, but I definitely been peeping his game and one Trojan to another Trojan. It's always fight on.
And then when you look at Jordyn Tyson, a guy that I think if he's not going to go 1 or 2 as the wide receiver in this draft, I'd be pretty darn surprised. He talked about how he's always had love for the Seattle Seahawks, so much so that, in fact, they were his favorite team growing up. He did have to be kind of careful about this because I think he instantly goes, "Oh, they're my favorite team." When I was growing up, which is probably something smart to say at the NFL Combine.
Yeah, I did. That's my favorite team. When I was a kid, it was my favorite team. I can't say that now.
Like to win the Super Bowl.
It was amazing. Yeah.
Do you have any connections on that team now, any of the players?
JSN, he's from Rockwall. Kind of talked to him a couple of times, and yeah, he's a very, very good player.
It's smart that the Seahawks checked up on these guys. Now, do I think that the Seahawks are going to trade up to go get one of these players? Probably not. There was some scuttlebutt around Chat Sports here, and there was some talk that maybe Seattle would look at this as an opportunity of, hey, that's our one area. If we don't get Shaheed back, we can go get a big-time playmaker, pair them with Jackson Smith and Jigba. Now watch out. I don't know if that's necessarily what they're going to do, but it's always smart to build a relationship with these players. You never know who's going to end up in free agency, and you never know who's going to drop. Remember, if it was up to Mel Kiper, Shedeur Sanders would have been the number 1 overall pick last year, and he fell all the way to the 5th round. Now, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen with these guys, but it's always smart to do your due diligence just in case you need to go look at someone who could potentially come in and fill a wide receiver spot, especially if you don't feel totally comfortable with some of the injury reports and injury issues that another player has had. Make sure that you hit that sub button if you haven't already. Look at how close we are to catching our Knicks Now channel. I want to catch the Knicks Now channel so freaking bad. All you got to do is hit that sub button. We're going to have you covered on any of the latest and greatest news surrounding your Seattle Seahawks. So go hit that sub button today. I just want to catch him. I want to catch him so freaking bad. I always love the NBA NFL rivalry, and I think that we can catch our Knicks Now channel rather quickly. So hit that sub button. You're going to find what I think is the best coverage on the Seattle Seahawks out there, specifically the best coverage on the Seattle Seahawks here at Chat Sports. Now, what's really cool and what you might not know about me is that originally my job before I got into media, I was a substitute teacher, believe it or not. That was my first job out of college. Well, that and I work in security at some different concerts. And now I get to take my teaching background and bring it here to Seahawks Today because we're looking at some report cards. And if you've been living under a rock, you might not have seen that the NFL has released the report cards that the players gave to the different franchises. Now, I know that there was a lot of pushback and some of these teams were trying to hide some of this stuff, but eventually it ended up coming out and getting leaked. And, well, I thought it would be fun to take a look at the report card for the Seahawks, and we could really break it down. When you look at everything that's going on here with the Seahawks, treatment of families, B+, love that. Home game field, F. We're going to dive into that more in just a minute, not yet. Food and dining, nutritionist, A+, that's great. You could tell just by watching some of the players running around just how jacked they were. I'll tell you what, you look at the locker room, it's a B+. The training room, training staff, weight room, strength coaches, all those A. The more that you go down the list, the more that you're going to see A's. So great marks for the Seattle Seahawks for the most part, which is always going to be the most important at the end of the day. If you want to be a team that isn't just a blip on the radar, but you want to be a team that's consistently good year after year after year after year, you need to have great marks in most of these departments. It's funny how most of the time when you see bad marks for most of these teams, they are teams that don't do very well. When you see good marks for teams, it's usually teams that do very well. And I think that this ends up falling on the shoulders of general manager John Schneider because he shows that he has created a good environment. He's created a deep environment. He's created an important environment that fosters a culture of treating everyone the correct way. There's a reason why we hold doors open for other people. There's a reason why when someone helps us out, we say thank you. There's a reason why we use pleases and stuff like that when you need something from someone. And I think that John Schneider has done a great job with that. I also think that Mike Macdonald has built upon that and created a culture of winning. Players want to win. So what do? They come to Seattle because they want to play for a man like that. They want to play in a culture like this. Now, I said we'd dive more into what the F stood for, and I think it's important to kind of look at this social here from Kaylin Kaler. And she posted the worst home field grades on social media. Tennessee The Jets, Giants, Seahawks all coming in with those Fs. A couple of those teams with F minuses. Now, what I do think is fascinating and important here to mention, they are not talking about the 12s. They are not talking about the Lumen Field experience. What they're talking about is the playing surface. And so what the players have made very clear is that they do not like the turf in Lumen Field. And I think that that is very interesting. You're seeing a movement now from a lot of players and former players saying they want to go towards the grass field. The grass field feels better on the players' joints. It feels better on when they're trying to run. They don't get injured as easily. It's just a better deal for all people. And with a lot of these NFL franchises, you have the time to take care of the grass. It's important to note, too, if the Seahawks did decide to go to grass, might not be as difficult of a transition as you think because, well, the FIFA World Cup is coming. And those games that are being played in Seattle, guess what? They're going to be played on real grass. So when I look at this, I think we're going to see when the World Cup is being played how the grass holds up in Seattle. Now, I understand that football is played in the fall. This is going to be played in the summer. There could be more mud, wet, grime, whatever. If the grass holds up well, I think that the Seahawks should really consider not going back to the turf. Now, it's already been made clear that Seattle, at least next year, will be back on turf. They're going to go grass for the World Cup. They're going to go back to turf. Maybe if the grass holds out okay and players continue to complain about the turf over at Lumen, maybe it might be time to explore a real grass option. Seahawks need to switch to real grass at Lumen Field. Agree or disagree? Just make sure that you do it loud and proud in the comment section of today's video. Let me know what your personal opinion is down there. Of course, make sure that your notifications are turned on. Free agency is just a little bit away. So that means that things are going to be flying fast and furious. You don't want to miss out on any of that. So make sure you turn your noties on. And if you're not subscribed, hit the sub button. What are you doing? We are one of the biggest channels on all of YouTube covering the Seattle Seahawks. Hit that sub button. You're going to be covered daily. Latest news and rumors on the Seahawks right here on the channel. Thank you guys so much for viewing today's video, and I cannot wait to see you next time.